How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing? What's going on?
I am tying up loose ends. I'm going to head over to the dentist to get my tooth fixed, but obviously I wanted to poke my head in with you. I got probably back at least a half an hour.
All right. Well, here we go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the sales show. I'm not sure how many sales people we're going to have on. We're going to try our best, and I'm going to start with a pay plan and order taker clip from a couple years ago. It was actually kind of interesting, so I figured I'd start with that. So here we go. So that's some thoughts from pay plans order taking. And I know we've all kind of transitioned to that order taking philosophy, at least with the pandemic. I'm just going to go through a quick, obviously, lead in, and we're going to go over more on sort of where sales are going as we move into 2025 sooner rather than later. Here we go.
My name's Tony Lund. I'm the general manager of Fred Bean's Kia in Langhorne. I just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman and Career Changers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now. And anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry has been right there. Larry's got me salespeople. He's got me managers. He's got me technicians, even through the toughest times in the industry. And he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out of a textbook, but Larry has real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome. And today we have not only one of our biggest fans and sponsors, someone who's really an expert in this sales side of the business. So Larry, I know you do all kinds of things, but maybe you could tell people who aren't familiar with the famous Larry Feldman, what you do, how you do it, and why sales is so important for every business, including the car business.
No problem, Ian, and thank you for saying famous rather than infamous. That puts a whole new slant on what I do. I'm a former salesman, a former dealer, and I got by accident into recruiting and training 12 years ago, and now I'm all over the country. The recruiting component is simple. I can find any position in a dealership. I can find techs, body shop personnel, salespeople, managers, controllers, title clerks. And as far as training, hey, you can tell them better than I can, Ian. I'm able to hold people's attention for 3-4 hours. They're not distracted. I'm having fun. I try to be authentic. That's basically it in a nutshell, my buddy. Career Changers USA.
Thanks very much. So obviously we've been hearing a lot about AI lately. We've been hearing a lot about how how difficult it is to sell things today. Actually, I saw a post today from a vendor who says it's so hard to sell car dealers because they're some of the best salespeople out there. But when we look at, I guess, adapting to the new future, which is really going to be incorporating new technology, whether it be AI or other, how do you think salespeople can adapt to that and still dominate moving forward with all this change? What do you think?
Well, you know, they say you should never answer a question with a question. But if you remember, when you started to recommend me to people, one of the things you always said was, you got to check this guy out. He actually answers his phone. Remember that, Ian?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Absolutely.
I think if we dial into being human, embrace the AI, embrace every tool we have, but focus more on being a human being, making eye contact, actually listening to people, I think will make all the difference in the world. Because we're in a situation now where everybody is a little concerned about automation, AI, a little put off by it. Everybody is yearning for a human touch. So I think we just embrace what we have and focus more on being attentive, showing that we actually care, and just being a human being. And I know that sounds kind of simplistic, but hey, you know, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I think that now more than ever, it's vital.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, and there was an interesting video, it was a salesperson from a different industry, but he was talking about, you know, how he gets such great response rates, and in the annals of, you know, non-customized emails and massive amounts of just outreach for no apparent reason, or a missing of outreach, or just not that personal touch. I think that's definitely a recipe for disaster, even if you have some of the best salespeople out there. And it's kind of funny because not only do I find the salespeople I talk to in different industries every day, maybe not as prepared as they could be, but also really just not understand the basics. It's not to say that they aren't trying, and I'm not faulting salespeople for picking up a telephone or using video or using email or text messages. But, you know, as you look at more competition, shrinking margins, as we talked about a couple of years ago, and profit in all departments being challenging, I actually looked at another post this morning from a gentleman that I know who said, well, you know, you got to dust off those old leads. You got to look back at the CRM for those people that maybe you forgot about, that maybe you were in your store at some point that you're just not paying attention to. I think part of it is just, you know, how can we reach out to people with a good story, with a good process in a timely fashion all the time? And I know we're sitting on a big database of past customers, or maybe ones that we didn't get done. You know, what's your theory there? What do you think?
Well, you know, I have an interesting take on this. I always like to act like the dealer that you're working for or with isn't advertising at all, and that you build up your own following. Because the best way to have a warm lead and not make what would be considered a cold call is to reach out to the people that already know and like you. I always say the people that I train and hire know thousands and thousands of people, and they raise their hand and say, I don't know that many, but you do. You know everybody. Your mother knows, your father knows, your sister, your brother, your wife, your ex-wife, people you were in school with, in the Army with. These are people that want to hear from you. And in a lot of states in the United States, other than Ohio and Virginia, you can write what's called a referral check. So you have a great "what's in it for me" for your customers,
right?
And to ignore those people, Ian, you know the stats better than anybody. If you deal with repeat referral, you can close as high as 55%.
Yeah.
If you throw in a referral fee, you can get it up to 70. If you're a superstar, what are you going to do closing traffic that just walks in? 18%, 15, 20?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, then you go back into the dealership. How about service? How many people still don't understand the gold mine of service? People that are already there, that are pre-existing, and can be in a position where, you know, I've been doing this with you guys for years. My car has 100,000 miles. But the backup, the orphan leads.
Yep.
Hey, you're already a customer. Mr. Johnson's no longer with us. I wanted to tell you that not just to sell you something, but anything you ever need, I'm here to help and take care of you.
Oh,
And excuse me if it's a little bumpy, and I'm in my car, so
No worries.
As far
Yeah.
as, the glasses and the pumps, I'm just trying to get where I gotta go.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, I always when I years ago I had the opportunity to work with a bunch of dealers who happened to be in the subprime space, and they purchased a great deal of leads, and their closing ratio was very, very low. I think it was something like 3 to 7%, something like that, right? And these were leads of people that had less than perfect credit, not to compare other leads to this, but at the end of the day, what the number that always shocked me, and you quoted it, 20% of people walking in that we paid to show up, probably. What happens to those 80%? And in subprime, what happens to those 93%? Now, they may not be easy calls, or they may not be easy emails, or they may take a long time to close. But if I'm sitting around, having a smoke or walking around or complaining about how hard things are in the new modern era of maybe getting back to normal, I mean, I think that going after those people with impunity and to your point, being of help is the way to look at it. But if for someone who maybe got into the car business in, I don't know, 2022, 2023, when everything was gravy, what's your advice to them as you're doing training? Like, you're seeing these people that were macking it hard. Everyone was just buying, closing ratios were probably 80% because people walked in, not because they wanted to, but because they needed a car. They weren't there to make friends. What do you think?
My advice would be simple. There have been people that have been making fabulous livings in the cars forever. We're not talking about a recent phenomenon, forever. And what happened was the market flipped around in a crazy way because supply and demand got out of whack.
Yep.
But now that we have to go back to actually doing what we're doing, that doesn't mean you still can't make a tremendous living. But you just have to focus on what a salesperson is as opposed to an order taker. Somebody willing to invest in their future, somebody willing to look forward, somebody to think ahead, somebody who polishes their skills and takes what they're doing seriously. Ian, what other job can you have where you give yourself a raise? You don't have to go to your boss and beg and plead. You just work a little smarter and a little harder. So I think it's a matter, a lot of this falls on management. You need to sit down with your guys and ladies and say, listen, it may not be exactly what it was, during COVID, but it's still a tremendous opportunity to build a great career and really make as much money as you want to make. Because every dealership I've ever been in, including the one I own, has a guy making $180,000 standing next to a guy that can't make $40,000. Same inventory, same ability, same advertising. It's strictly a matter of the two things that we have control over: your time and your attitude. And thankfully, that'll never change.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of fear out there from different generations. I'm not saying mine, but different generations out there that are saying, oh, it's hard. And, how come we can't make a good living and things are expensive and all this stuff. And there's a lot of change. But, I would argue that, you have to embrace change in the car business and in any business. But that doesn't mean you forget the basics. And I think what's missing when I talk to salespeople today in any industry, that includes the car industry, is they think the technology is going to make it happen for them. They think if I automate something, or if I just send an email magically, that's going to deliver the gold. And I think that's part of the challenge. Is it's not just skills; it's about attitude, to your point, but also about doing the same things all the time that are right. And over time, you're gonna have some growth, but more importantly, you're gonna win more. If you give up because it's too hard, or you are frustrated with the fact that maybe it takes 3 or 4 reach outs to talk to someone, then it's probably the wrong business for you. I mean, there's a famous car entrepreneur where I used to live who was famous for firing the worst guy on the team every month, and people gave him grief for it. But he says maybe the car business just isn't for those people. And I agree with that. Like, you've got to put in the effort. And it's not to say everyone's going to be making that 180 to your example, but I think it's if you put in the work and you know what you're doing, I think it's very relatively easy to make $100,000 a year in the car business, which is way more than most people make.
And it's your approach mentally. You and me are not 500 years old. We're not old guys, but we remember a time when the phone rang in your house, everybody was excited to see who the call was for. We've gotten so blasé and so cynical in terms of human contact. it astonishes me that people apply for jobs and either myself or my 2 assistants reach out. Sometimes immediately, nobody answers their phone. And how can you apply for a job and the phone rings and you don't bother answering? So if you're not excited about making contact, if you're not excited about a potential customer, it just bleeds into everything. You know, I say it all the time. If you're married, if you live with somebody, if you're in the same house with someone, and you go home and you have a horrible day, they tend to say, "Hey, what's wrong? Hey, I'm not." They always know something's wrong. There's no neon sign over your head that says Ian Nethercott's bad day. It's all over our face. Well, don't you think customers see when we're not smiling, when we're not happy? And Ian, it doesn't have to be in person. Call a couple different businesses, not just dealerships. You can tell some receptionists are great. Hey, hello, hold on, let me get them. And others sound like they're annoyed that you called. How about when you beg not to be put on hold and then they say, okay, hold. So I think it's your attitude, it's your approach. I'm big on an attitude of gratitude. Now there's people out there that are more religious than I am. I'm just talking about purely in and out the fact that I'm above ground and there's plenty of people that aren't. And every day I have an opportunity to have some fun, make some money, make some friends. Yeah, that propels me because I'm always excited to try things and do things. I reached out, I saw you do a podcast, the Auto Hub show a couple years ago. And I thought, man, these guys are great. And I remember I reached out to you, Jeff, who was obviously not part of the show anymore, but you were my guys. And man, look what developed. I took a shot. I've made really good friends. I've made a ton of great contacts because I was excited. Now, if I looked at it and said, another podcast, who cares? If we're not willing to take a shot, if we're not willing to be excited, where are we going?
Yeah, but what do you do, Larry? I mean, I know you're always up, and I appreciate that you're getting it done and you're doing what needs to be done. But what do you do when you go into a dealership and you have that feeling that like nobody there really is getting it done? Like the managers are down, the salespeople are down, the people you hire might be up. But what do you do to wake these people up when maybe they're just not where they need to be? Like, how do you do that?
Are you talking about me as a trainer?
Yeah, like you're going to a dealership and you get there and it's the end of the world when you walk in. You know what I mean?
What I do is I try to mix, as you're well aware, humor with practicality, logic with emotion. Anytime I hear people complain, I remind them that if they go to a pediatric cancer ward, they'll see people that really have problems. When I first started dating my wife, she worked at the Inglis House, which is a wheelchair community. You never saw a happier bunch of people. And I think it made her understand early on that there's.
I think we might have lost Larry, but while we're waiting for him to come. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Larry.
People know you're alive. You can make money. You can do a million things. What's the sense of approaching things in a negative fashion? What's the ups? Listen, everything's ROI. If I do this, what can I gain or what can I lose? What do you lose by getting up every morning and going into a situation and thinking, this is no good? I love to quote Thoreau. Most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Why would you want to get up every day and say, I got to go to work, this is going to be horrible, moan and groan all day, and then go home and rinse and repeat?
Well, I had the opportunity to watch this. Interesting you bring that up. I had an opportunity on the weekend to watch a movie on Netflix, and it was pretty interesting. So it was in the early days of polio. This gentleman who was, I guess, a World War I veteran, he got polio and he was paralyzed. And at that point, your life was you're going to be in a hospital on a ventilator. That's like the rest of your life. And his wife was like, no, like that's not going to happen. We're going to figure out a solution where we can get this guy out of the hospital and we can, at least retain some of his life. And you look at it, and he lived, I think, one of the longest living person who was paralyzed from polio at a young age. And it was interesting because there's a scene in the movie where he goes to a place in Germany. And typical Germans, it's very regimented. It's almost like something out of a sci-fi movie. And he goes, that's not living, man. Even if the person's in a wheelchair and you wheel them around, people can't be in an iron lung for the rest of their life. That's not living, man. And I sat there and it was interesting because everybody fought against him. Everybody. The doctor's like, you can't do that. He's going to die. He managed to, you know, travel quite a bit for someone in his situation and got it done because he, you know, he wanted to live his life. And it's not like he had no challenges. If anything, he had more challenges than most. And I think the thing that shocks me when I go into your point, into a store where you got healthy people that, you know, are making a living. They may not be making the living they want, but all they can see is the negative side of things. And I think when you look at it, it's a famous quote. It's like, it's surprising when you change the way you look at things, that the things you're looking at change. And I always, when I was in the car business, even when I started, and there wasn't a huge amount of opportunity at the store I worked at, but luckily for me, I was a salesperson. So I was out there beating the drum. At the end of the day, and we saw this in the video earlier, you know, everybody, they get out of a different business and they get into the car business, and then nobody knows what happened to them. Like, what are you doing to promote what you do? I mean, I was at a business networking event here in Calgary, where I live, a couple weeks ago, and I'm not selling cars. I probably had 5 people ask me about cars. You know, can I work in the business? How do I buy a car? What car should I buy? You know, why should I get this versus that? What do you think about electric cars? And I was sitting there going, imagine if there was a car salesperson here who could actually sell cars. I mean, there's a guy from Costco of all places who was there trying to get some business. But I sat there and I said, why isn't there at least one car salesman who's at this networking event? Listen, just one guy or gal.
We are the most popular people at every party because we are a society fascinated by cars. Fascinated. If a guy just bought a car, he wants to know if he got a good deal. A guy could have just bought a car and he's still asking you about the newest model and something else that's coming out. It's an easy topic to talk about. But once again, you have to be sociable. You have to be outgoing. You have to realize that everybody's an opportunity. And every negative presents a great opportunity. You know, when you get into situations where the economy goes bad or there's a situation that goes south, the good people usually rise to the top even faster because where everybody else is panicking, they're taking a deep breath and have a smile on their face.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm in a situation where maybe I leased someone a car or financed someone a car a couple of years ago, and maybe the interest rates now are a little better, or the cars are a little cheaper, or maybe there's a better option, it's a reason to make a call and check in with that person. You never know what someone's situation is if you don't ask. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges when you look at I use the mortgage industry a lot as a comparative. I have a buddy who's a realtor in Vancouver where I used to live, and he's like, well, you know, what do I say? I said, well, you got to call with a game plan. You got to call with some sort of positive game plan. You can't just call people and hope it's going to work out. And it was funny. I got a call from my internet provider last week. So he calls me, he's trying to upgrade my internet. And I said, well, you're not even delivering the internet that you said you were going to. So why don't you start by doing that? And then instead of maybe trying to fix that, which would have been a smart move, he's then trying to sell me home security. I'm like, what?
Wait a minute. You just gave a great example. You want to get better? You want to make more business? Under promise and over deliver. Because you just saw an example of over promising and under delivering. And your first thought was, hey, you're not even delivering what the heck you told me you deliver. Now you want me to buy more?
Exactly. So if I'm a car salesperson today, and maybe I made a lot of money in the last couple of years, what I've got to do is think smart and look at maybe people that are still in cars they've been in for 3 or 4 years, who maybe didn't make a decision during the pandemic, who maybe didn't have to, but maybe now there's a better lease officer, there's better things going on.
How about all their friends and family
Yep.
that see the car they're driving, and if you've stayed in touch and taken care of them, maybe those people haven't bought a car yet. They didn't buy a car during the pandemic. Not everybody bought a car during the pandemic. So there's tons and tons of business all around us, but we have to put ourselves in a position where we can get it, where people want to do business with us. You know, I tell people all the time, be upbeat, be positive. Don't waste people's time, have a smile on your face. I'd like to believe that one of the reasons I'm lucky enough to do business, when people see me on caller ID, they can't wait to pick it up. They know I'll have some positivity. I'll have a joke. If I was a drone, I mean, as good as I am about answering the phone, there's people I look at, oh my God, do I have to take that call? So to be a positive influence, to be somebody that people want to talk to and want to do business with is a big plus.
So what do you think of the top 3 things? Like, I mean, I know obviously being positive is great, having a great attitude, thinking smart, not hard, or both. But also, I mean, I think technology is your friend, but only if it makes sense. And I think that's something that I think a lot of dealers are thinking that's the magic bullet. But what do you say to dealers if they're going to do 3 things? Pick 3 things to fix their sales process.
Well, the first thing is these people have to learn to smile again, because I just did a really good class of mystery shopping, and man, it's the same thing. My sister just had a baby. Well, where's your sister? Why isn't she here? Tell her to come back. They didn't look happy. They didn't give them, the classic old whiffum. What's in it for me to come back? I think we need to plan our day. We get buffeted around, and it's like we're just like a bouncy ball. We need to plan. Now, if you deviate from the day, that may mean you sold 3 cars, but at least you know what you had to go back to. And I think we need to set goals. And again, this is hundreds and thousands of years old, but it still works. If you don't know what you're shooting, if you have the best navigation system on the planet and you don't put in the coordinates, how are you going to get there? If you say to me, Larry, I want to sell 20 cars a month. Okay, Ian, I don't care how talented you are, you can't sell 20 cars off of 20 customers. So let's calculate how many customers you're going to need, and then let's figure out how we can endeavor to get them in. So I think if you have goals, if you plan your day, if you're actually smiling and upbeat and positive, I think you control the world. You certainly have a better hand than if you don't smile at people. You have no plan for the day. You're just waiting to see what happens. And if, well, my goal is to get rich. What the hell does rich mean? 100,000, 500,000, a million? You want to be Elon Musk?
Yeah.
If you're homeless, I bet you $100 a week sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Elon Musk, rightly or wrongly, got there without a game plan and without executing over a long period of time. But more importantly, he probably did the simple math. And it's not like you have to be a physicist or you have to understand massive calculations. It's just strict math. And we go back to what we talked about earlier. So if you're looking at it and you're going, okay, it's it's a 20% closing ratio, it's a 50% closing ratio, it's a 70% closing ratio. Okay, the next question is, how many customers do you talk to in a given week, month? What are you talking to, and how can you increase that?
How excited are you? Is it a chore? Is it an obligation, or is it something you can't wait to do?
Yeah, I mean, I always used to use the example when I was training is, okay, so you want to make $100,000 a year. Okay, great. What did you make last year? And they said, okay, I made this. Okay, great. So you're going to have to do things that maybe you didn't do to get more money in your life. And I always use the example of a coach. He was coaching a women's Olympic team, and they were bitching and whining about how they had to do all this work. He goes, do you think getting a gold medal is easy? You're going to have to do things that maybe that silver medal, bronze medal person won't do, right?
I'm getting ready to walk into the dentist office.
Yeah.
So let me throw one other thing.
Yeah,
out here.
shoot.
Expediency.
Yeah.
You have to be fast. If you don't mind me saying, you reached out to me and said your brother and I might be able to team up.
Yeah. I
didn't wait a week. As soon as I got the message, I called him. Let's get into the habit of doing things right and right away. All right, I got to go get my tooth fixed.
Enjoy. Thanks very much, Larry. And thanks for all the thoughts. Have a good dentistry experience. And that's it for today. Just I was hoping to have more guests on today, but unfortunately, I guess being the beginning of a month, it's just like the end of the month. Sometimes it's hard. But I still thought it was useful to obviously have a meeting and discuss sales. I also wanted to really talk a little bit about my experience in sales and how I got it done as a salesperson when I sold cars. To me, it was always about looking at what had happened over the past, what I wanted to happen in the future, and looking at month to month, year to year. If you're planning things like I want to make XYZ amount of money, you've got to do the math. It's not complex math. It's as simple as my closing ratio is this. I need to talk to this many customers. You can't rely on the dealership to deliver all those customers. But what you can do, and we talked about this a little bit on the show today, was talk to your manager about maybe those leads that nobody's talking to. The internet leads that nobody follows up after 6 months or 3 months. If you're in subprime, that 93% of people that didn't buy, who's talking to those leads? Now, these calls may not be easy calls, but at the end of the day, they're calls. They could be emails, calls, and texts if you're younger salespeople. They could be all the above. But the key to success in sales after 25 years for me has always been continuing to do the same things over and over again and getting better day by day. If you're not doing that activity, you're not doing that repetition, you're not learning, you're not actually doing that outreach, you're not doing that prospecting with impunity, you're just not going to get the results. If you think software is going to fix it for you or automation is the answer, it may be part of the answer, but at the end of the day, there's no substitute from a face-to-face discussion or worst case, a phone call or an email to get that person to come and have a conversation. But more importantly, really thinking about the story you will tell and why the customer should, listen. So really think about what you're saying from a scripting point of view, but also who you're calling. And worst case scenario, be of help to the customer, whether it's in the service department, whether it's in the sales department, whether it be leasing, whether it be subprime, whether it be accessories or parts, whether it be even some cases a bad customer experience that maybe you can help with. When you're talking to that customer, remember that it's the sale that gets the customer in, but it's that experience over the long term that grows a business. When I was a lease manager, when I was an internet manager, really it was about continuing to take care of that customer over time. So that way I wasn't working as hard to attract customers. I was working really mostly on retaining customers I'd already had. And to Larry's point earlier, there's no harm in asking that customer for someone they know, friend, family, associate, who maybe needs a car. And lastly, if you're in an area where there is networking events, whether it be a church group, whether it be a synagogue, whether it be a mosque, whether it be a business group, you'd be shocked with how few people in the car business show up to these events. Be involved in your community. And what you're going to find is that people are going to ask you car questions because you're not in a traditional dealership environment. They just have questions. Thanks for watching today. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to next week. Obviously, going to have some details coming out soon. If anything I can do to help you, reach out to the AutoHub Show. It's ian@autohubshow.com. And if you want to be on the show or you want to be interviewed in our new one-on-one series, definitely check out our website and send us a message. Have yourself a great day and happy November. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.